Thank you, Brandy. We are live.
Okay.
Bear with me. The YouTube's taking a little bit longer than usual. Yes, sir. Ready when you are.
All right. So we'll open the April 14th Rockbridge County Planning Commission meeting. Call to order. So roll call. Commission Member Hennis.
Here.
Commission Member Hines.
Here.
Mr. Lucas, I don't believe is going to be here. Did he work out anything with on Zoom?
I don't believe so. I believe he's
Okay. I don't think he was going
Let's make sure as far as attendees. Bear with
to.
me here.
Okay. No, he was in Richmond. Not thinking he was going to be on, even able to Zoom. So,
Yes, I do not believe he's
okay. Mr. Whitmore
here.
and Mr. McLaughlin is here too. While the room is open to the public due to the size of the meeting room and social distancing requirements, no more than 30 attendees will be allowed in the room at one time. Per the Governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia Executive Order number 63, all persons over the age of 10 that do not have a precluding medical condition are asked to wear a face covering. We'll hold citizen comments near the beginning of the meeting. At that time, the public is welcome to make comments unrelated to any of the public hearings. Comments related to public hearings should be held until that item is discussed and the public hearing is open. And we'll do our best to take citizen comments remotely. There are two options for citizens to offer comment. One is to join the Rockbridge County Planning Commission Zoom webinar, and the link is available on the county website to copy into the address line on your browser. And number two, to join by telephone. You may dial into one of the numbers listed on the county website. The webinar ID and passwords are there for your convenience. Citizens wishing to simply view the meeting live or after the fact can do so on the Rockbridge County Planning Commission YouTube channel, also available on the county website. If you wish to make a citizen comment as a Zoom meeting participant, you'll use the raise your hand feature, and you can press the raise hand button on the bottom of your Zoom window or press *9 if you're calling by telephone. Okay, so at this time, we'll go ahead and proceed with the meeting. And I'll remind that everyone that in addition to participating by Zoom or telephone, written citizen comments have been solicited for receipt by way of email, U.S. mail, and the Dropbox located outside the front entrance to the county administration buildings and by via email. I'll now open the floor to any citizen comments for any items not on the agenda. Anybody present?
No, sir, but we do have one hand raised. Bear with me here. Mr. Hart, we saw that you had your hand raised. Can you hear us?
Mr. Hart, can you hear
Yes,
us?
I can, Chris.
Perfect. We can hear you now.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you have the floor. For
Yes. Okay. Well, thank you. Members of the commission, thank you for a chance to address you again. Speaking concerning the Bark solar field expansion. In the letter that I sent you, I offered the opinion or the assumption that rural internet service would be continued to expand till it reached everybody. Well, as further evidence of that, and the infrastructure bill currently in front of the U.S. Congress, there's more money in there for rural internet. So I submit that that is in fact going to happen. That's a good thing for our county, and I'm looking forward to Bark having the whole county covered. I really appreciate the effort that Bark has put forth in revising their plan. I see some of the work is currently ongoing, and I think their revised plan addresses most of the concerns that I had and that the other members of the community had. And we appreciate them being a good neighbor. So thank you, sir. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Hart. All right, Chris, are there any other hands raised or?
No, sir. There are no other hands raised and no other open questions.
All right, so we'll go ahead and close that those comments and move on to the approval of the March 10th minutes. Any? I didn't see, the only thing that I saw was a mistake on my part. So
I make a motion that we approve the minutes as submitted.
A second.
we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
That's approved. Moving on now to the Board of Supervisor report. And according to my notes, there is no report.
That is correct.
Okay, moving on to number 5, the Bark Electric Cooperative Big Spring Drive application for the temporary special exception permit, laydown yard public utility in the agricultural and general uses is A2 zoning district. And Ms. Hines needs to read a statement at this time.
Good evening. I abstain from all matters, discussions, or voting on the Bark Electric Cooperative application for a temporary special exemption permit. And my disclosure statement required under the Virginia Code 2.2-3115F is on file with the Secretary of the Planning Commission.
Okay, we'll now turn it over to staff and to Bark to fill us in on what's going on.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. This is a BARC Electrical Cooperative application for a temporary special exception for public utilities in the agricultural and general use district. Of course, the public hearing was held in February, and we'll get to those details. Just to review the area zoning map. Let me minimize this. Let's see here. Let me minimize this so y'all can see here. All right, perfect. So just to review the quick zoning map, white is the agricultural and general use district. It's in an agricultural zoning district, A2, surrounded by A2 zoning. The BARC is outlined in orange, is identified as tax map number 47-A-50, and it's 15.24 acres per tax record. So our zoning continue. A portion of the BARC tract is located within Zone Zone A area within the 100-year floodplain. Sort of two different maps working here. The map on the left shows the original mapping of the 100-year floodplain. The plat on the right shows the extent of the 100-year floodplain per the May 1st, 2015 letter of map amendment, LOMA, that was submitted and approved by FEMA. As you can see, the LOMA removed a large portion of the floodplain from that property. The LOMA process was performed prior to BARC acquiring the additional 7.23 acres to the west, and therefore the LOMA did not pertain to the area under consideration of the laydown yard. The special application itself, BARC has made an application for a temporary special exception permit in order to continue to utilize the property as a laydown yard for equipment and material storage for BARC Connect's broadband and fiber project. The property is located in the A2 zoning district per section 603.03-9 of the land development regulations. Public utilities are used by special exception. Just a brief history to review the brief history. In 2017, Board of Supervisors approved a temporary special exception permit for a laydown yard for the broadband project. The permit was for a 2-year period per section 802.03-11 on March 25th, 2019. The Board of Supervisors approved a 2-year extension of the special exception permit. That section states the renewal of a special exception does not require a public hearing unless the original conditions are changed. However, notice of the renewal shall be shown on the agenda of the Board of Supervisors. Condition number 2 of the original July 24th, 2017 special exception permit states that the expiration upon termination of the VDOT permit for the approval of the construction entrance permit no later than April 12th, 2019. Per conversation with VDOT, the current expiration date of the temporary construction entrance has been extended until November 28th, 2021. BARC has stated that BARC has the ability to request an extension, and VDOT would take that under consideration. Since in a subsequent conversation with VDOT, they would entertain aligning the temporary construction permit with the terms or the expiration date of the special exception permit, but that application has to be made. Due to the fact that the condition has to be modified, a new special exception will have to be obtained to continue the temporary construction yard, temporary laydown yard. On February 10th, 2021, the Planning Commission held its public hearing on the application for the temporary special exception permit. Concerns were expressed of lack of screening for the laydown yard and the current condition of the laydown yard and the mud in the yard. On March 26, 2021, Mr. Mike Kaiser, CEO with Bark, in attendance this evening, requested an extension of the review for the pending application. The purpose for the request was to work on a plan that addresses the concerns that were raised during the meeting. The revised plan was submitted and included in the Planning Commission package for tonight's meeting. At this time, I'd like to turn the floor over to Mr. Mike Kaiser and review the details of the project and review what modifications have been made to the site plan themselves. With that, Mr. Mike Kaiser, CEO with BARC. And we can leave this up for discussion purposes.
Thank you, Mr. Kaiser.
Yeah, thank you for considering this. I think what we've come up with as far as fixes to address the screening and the mud are reasonable and in light of what's out there. Just to real quickly take you through everything. What we're proposing is a circular drive, adding some aggregate pavement, gravel, in order to allow the vehicles to go in a circular direction around the yard, pick up the materials around the outside, and avoid that inner area where it's really becoming a lot of mud and torn up ground. What we do is roll that center area and seed and straw it, and hopefully get grass to grow in that middle part, and just keep vehicles on the gravel drive. As far as the parking goes, we're going to move the parking that's been going on along Big Spring Road, move that up to if you see the back part of the fence line there, to keep the cars from tearing up the grass outside of the fence line there towards Big Spring Road. And then lastly, the Leland Cypress double row along Route 60 and Big Spring Drive in order to provide some vegetative screening, and then a small portion on the upper corner on the north end there to hopefully block a little bit of the view coming down Fredericksburg Road. What we've diagrammed is I think is very accurate in terms of the number of Leland Cypress, and you can see in the upper left-hand corner of the drawing there the actual distances that we proposed between the Leland Cypress, and that was based on feedback from the nursery that we talked to about the vegetative screening and the best way to keep it from keep them healthy and growing and not impeding each other's growth. I'm happy to answer questions. That's the extent of the what we're recommending or requesting.
I've noticed things are a whole lot neater even now since the last time. You all done a great job cleaning up, and
Thank you.
I like.
I had a question. So we've extended this, a few times, and I know it's not your intent that you're going to extend it again, but with this money coming in, have you all applied for more grants? I mean, is there, obviously, are you going to be able to get us covered in the next 2 years? Or are we going to look at another extension for a temporary yard?
I know that Bark Electric will have its electric portion, its electric service territory covered in the next 1 to 2 years. So every Bark member, now, to the extent that we get grants that are outside of our electric territory for Rockbridge, that could change if that comes down. Right now, we're not applying for any. I'm not sure whether we'll get any or not. Even the federal money that's coming down, we don't even know how much the locality will get or who will get it. So it's hard to say, but that could impact our operations. But we are planning to have the electric portion done in the next 1 to 2 years.
So if you get that, let's say you got more grant money, would it likely you'd want to keep the laydown yard there? There's not another place that you would want to start over, I'm guessing.
Probably not. Yeah.
Anything else?
Questions for me?
And I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Of course, the public hearing was opened and closed during it. Mr. Hart made comments during citizen comments, obviously. Let's see. I'll go back to.
Chris, have you gotten any more phone calls? I know in the beginning, before the first hearing, we had quite a few people calling us that were not in favor or were at least asking that things be cleaned up and I'm just wondering if you've had any further comment on that.
No,
from you.
ma'am, I have not. I have shared the site plan. Mr. Hart requested the site plan, the revised site plan. So of course I emailed that to him, but other than that, I've had no communication with others in the area.
Okay.
I have nothing. Anybody else have anything?
No.
No.
Call for a motion.
I'll make a motion. I make a motion that the Planning Commission recommend to the Board of Supervisors that the temporary special exception permit to bark for a laydown yard in the agricultural and general uses district A2 at 1972 Big Spring Drive in the Cars Creek Magisterial District, identified as tax map number 47-A-50, be approved with the following conditions. 1, substantial compliance with the development plan prepared by BARC titled Highland Bell BARC Community Solar Project and Learning Center Site Plan, dated February the 18th, 2015, with a revision date of March 31, 2021. And 2, approval contingent on final VDOT and erosion sediment control stormwater management approvals.
All right, we have a motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Kaiser, very much for your attention to the community feedback. All right, moving on to the next item on the agenda with the Dominion Energy Glasgow Highway public hearing. We'll see that below. Application for special exception permit, expansion of Balcony Falls Substation, public utility in the agricultural and general uses, the A2 zoning district. So, staff, if you all want to, Chris, if you want to.
Yes, bear with me here. Not sure if I remove him, so we'll keep it like that for. All right, I'm going to do a very brief PowerPoint presentation. Bear with me here. All right, this is Dominion Power application for public utility in the agricultural and general use district. Just real quickly to review the zoning area, zoning map. The white, which this property is located in, is the agricultural and general use A2 district. The dark green is, in this case, is National Forest, is the conservation zoning district, C1. And the light green to the north also is agricultural and general use. The Dominion track is outlined in orange and further identified as tax map number 115A-A-1. And I believe it consists of approximately 4 acres per tax records. The Dominion Power has made an application for a special exception permit in order to expand the existing Balcony Falls substation. The property is located again in the A2 zoning district, and per section 603.03-9 of the County of Rockbridge Land Development regulations, the public utilities are used by special exception. So obviously the property is located on the north side of Glasgow Highway, further identified as 4115 Glasgow Highway. Mr. Ben Jackson, engineer with Kimberly Horn, had submitted the following plans for the special exception permit. Mr. Jackson is in attendance tonight via Zoom, and he has been promoted to a panelist. The plans show the limits of the existing substation and the limits of the proposed substation expansion. The existing footprint consists of approximately 0.38 acres, and the proposed consists of 0.93 acres. Staff met with Mr. Jackson this morning, an arborist with Dominion Power, to review the site and discuss the possibility for additional plantings to reduce the visual impact of the proposed expansion. At this time, I'd like to turn over the meeting to Mr. Jackson and his team to review the details of the proposed expansion and the planting areas that were identified earlier this morning. And I will stop sharing my screen, Mr. Jackson. Can you hear us,
I can
Ben?
hear you.
Okay.
Good
We do
evening.
not-
Good
We don't
evening,
have a
Chris.
video of you, or we don't have the video is turned off on your end. If you
Hold
want
on.
to share the screen, that's fine. Perfect. We can see you and hear you well now. You have the floor.
There we go. Good evening, Chris. Good evening, members of the Rockbridge County Planning Commission. This is my first ever virtual Planning Commission meeting, so give me a little bit if there's some IT issues. I'm going to share my screen now. Special thank you to Chris for meeting us, myself and Mr. Bill Brown from Dominion this morning on site to talk about some landscaping issues that you mentioned a second ago. Can you confirm that you can see my screen here?
Not yet.
Okay, hold on. How about now?
We can now. Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. So to get everyone oriented here, Route 501, the highway, is down here where my mouse is moving. The existing substation is this gray shaded area. It's about 4/10 of an acre, like Chris mentioned. We're looking at expanding the substation by about a factor of 2x, going up to about 9/10 of an acre. The substation will be expanded into the site this way, towards the woods, towards the north there, away from the road, not towards the road. A good way to demonstrate that. This is a picture from this morning. The expansion that we're looking at is in this direction over here. The proposed landscaping that we were discussing this morning was in particular to screen views coming from the west, which would be heading this way, where the substation is most visible. Coming from the east, it's pretty well screened already by existing vegetation. So we do not have a confirmed plan in place this morning, or as announced because of the meeting this morning. Because of these overhead lines that you can see here, it's going to take a little bit to figure out what kind of vegetation we can put there, how tall it's going to be, spacing, genus, species, all that. But we do feel very comfortable that we can provide something that we can make work and that will provide adequate screening for this substation as it is now and as it will be expanded. In terms of general characteristics of the project, the station's been there about 100 years. It's just in need of an upgrade and some modernization. The new equipment will be similar to what's there currently in terms of height, look, finish, those types of characteristics. The perimeter security fence will be upgraded. Currently, it's 7 feet tall with 1 foot of barbed wire, standard 2-inch chain link mesh. That the new fence will be 12 feet tall, no barbed wire, and will be a bit of a tighter chain link pattern. You should be able to see these before and after pictures here. On the left is the fence as it looks today. On the right is an example photo of what it will look like when the project's complete. Looks pretty sharp. It also provides better visual screening of the equipment that's behind it, in addition to other security features that is the Dominion standard. Other items of concern, go back to this picture here. The existing entrance that this picture was taken from, that will be the entrance that will remain. There's no new entrances off of Route 501 here. During construction, obviously there'll be traffic coming and going here, but after construction is complete, it should be pretty similar in terms of vehicles coming and going as to what's there now, which is very little, a few vehicles a month. There shouldn't be any light pollution or noise pollution after the project's complete, and screening, like I mentioned earlier, will be installed right here via some new evergreens, and also potentially parallel Route 501 as long as we can stay out from underneath this overhead distribution line here. I think that hits the high points. I'm happy to answer any questions on the application, and also Dominion Energy should be on the line here. I can't see the master participation list, but there's a couple fellas from Dominion on the line if there's any particular specific questions for them. Once again, Chris, thank you for meeting with us on site this morning, being flexible. Look forward to working with you guys to get this project permitted and approved, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Okay,
Stop sharing the screen.
so at this time, I guess we need to open the public hearing.
Yes.
And so now, public hearing is open. Is there anyone physically present to speak? Not seeing anybody. Is there anyone, staff? Is there anybody? I think you need to read one comment.
That's correct. Yes, thank you. We did receive one public comment during via the Planning Commission citizen comment. Subject comments related to Dominion plans to increase power substation on 501 near Glasgow. And I read, on behalf of the Eccles family, adjacent landowner, we ask that Dominion be required to screen the substation in some manner as to reduce the visual impact of the site. This is a beautiful area of Rockbridge County, and the substation detracts from the views along this section of the highway. In fact, it is the only one, if not, in fact, it is one of the few, if not the only, unsightly spots for miles. Thank you for your consideration of this request from Edward, and I'm going to spell his last name, Kroph, and president of the Eccles Farm Incorporated.
All right, thank you. Are there, Chris, is there anybody electronically?
We do have several people, and if you are a Dominion employee, if you'd like to speak, before or after the citizen comment period, obviously just raise your hand. But if anyone else would like to speak, we do have many people as attendees. Now would be the time to raise your hand, please. The raise hand option on the bottom of your screen. Not seeing any raised hands. I will go to question and answers.
Chat.
I'm not sure why. There are no open questions.
Anybody on phone?
And there is no one with phone numbers. So with that, I'll turn it back over to the chair.
Well, if there are no others, then we can go ahead and close the public hearing comment period. If there's anybody from Dominion that would like to speak, I think this would be an appropriate time to speak. And then we may have some questions that somebody will need to answer. Anybody?
It's pretty straightforward. I mean, it's been there 100
Okay.
years. It's time to upgrade.
It is time for an upgrade, definitely. All right, anybody have any, we'll bring it back to the Planning Commission, and anybody have any comments or questions? For Dominion?
I guess my only question is, so we have an idea, I mean, are they going to come up with a plan to bring back to us before we move forward with this?
That would be the one option for sure. We did start the discussion late, and I apologize on staff's behalf on that part. We did get out there and we did find some identified some areas that could use plantings, and so now the next step would be to identify a landscaping plan, and of course with the arborist being there, he was able to explain how many different moving parts there are as far as the height of the wires without a full load and with the load. There's some sag there, of course, with the plantings at mature height and certain requirements of separations of those two. And so I do think it'd be
It
beneficial.
seems like this project is, it's 100 years old. It's time to upgrade. I mean, I don't think there's any question about that. My only thing is I'd like to see what the plantings are what they're thinking there.
Is the plantings in for the Eccles, is that
the concern, or are they just doing it for?
Well, I think it's really, in my opinion, it's not necessarily for the benefit of the Eccles farm, if you
Just for the
will, just the
public in
traveling public. Yes, and I think that was expressed in the comments from the on behalf of the Eccles family. When you go to the site, it's obviously that part of Rockbridge County has some extreme topography changes even elsewhere. We always, we all live in rolling terrain, but this is really, a extreme mountain on one side with extreme elevations and the same on the other. So it's not highly visible, certainly not highly visible from any farm fields or anything like that. It's mostly the along Glasgow Highway itself.
Well, no, the retaining walls themselves will be, drastic, because you're looking here, it's like, how far are they? 14 foot in height? What one of the
Mr. Jackson, if you could
walls.
address that, just review the retaining walls.
Sure. There's going to be 2 retaining walls. One is in cut and one is in fill. The smaller retaining wall will be an average height of about 5 or 6 feet. That's the one that's closer to the road. And then the taller retaining wall will be into the site a little bit more, and it's going to be about 8 or 9 feet average height.
Is that just going to be like a Versa block wall?
The smaller wall that's in fill closer to the road, that will be your typical segmental block retaining wall, neutral in color, gray or brown. And then the larger one, the design for that, we're still doing some geotechnical work, is not finalized. I suspect it'll be concrete poured in place, but that is not finalized yet. And that one will be less visible from Route 501.
Height of the new equipment's a little bit higher than what's there, and with new equipment coming in, sometimes gets real shiny. Is there a way to make sure that it's not going to be what's there right now has a nice patina to it, so it doesn't have it's not as striking, but new equipment oftentimes is very striking. Are there any plans to mute the brightness of the new materials, new structures?
I think the finish of the proposed equipment will be very similar to what's there now. I will pass the torch here to Dominion. Bob, are you on the call? Can you answer that question or provide any additional insight on the finish of the new material?
Yes, Mr. Bob Humphreys is on the line, and I'm going to promote him to a panelist now. And so, Mr. Humphreys, I believe you are muted, but if you unmute, I think we'll be able to hear you.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Yes, the equipment would be similar as been mentioned. The two, we refer to them as a backbone tower that the transmission lines connect to, that will be somewhat in the middle of the station. They would be of a galvanized steel makeup, similar to what we would have on the transmission line.
Okay, is that going to be bright or shiny, or will that mute over time, or?
It mutes over time, sir. The initial finish is a galvanized finish, and it will mute just a natural process in a pretty short duration.
Okay.
Did I answer your question?
I think so. That is always a concern that I know some people have, and I'm just speaking for other folks that want to make sure that things are not going to be too flashy for too long. So, the height of the structures, I noticed in that it went from 45 to like 70 feet. Is that correct? So that the taller structures will be a little more visible than what's there now. I'm assuming that's part of the backbone that's going to get the wires up to the transmission line.
Yes, sir, that's correct. And what you naturally have, the design standards, as they change and evolve over time, a lot of that additional height is just rooted in the design standards, National Electric Code, those type items. You gain more ground clearance and things operate at higher capacities and different components. So it's just kind of a natural progression in your codes, if you would.
Just had a question on the, I know this is part of a transmission line rebuild all the way to the Big Island area, and just curious what the finish or the material was chosen for the transmission towers themselves.
The backbones I described, the others will be similar in nature, sir.
The galvanized steel.
Galvanized steel, and we will use, in some other areas, they may be of a weathering steel component where it's a tubular structure rather than a lattice type steel structure.
So one thing that we've, and this is Chris Slayton, one thing that we've discussed in the past, and one thing that was utilized in the past with previous special exceptions was core 10 steel. And that worked out, in my opinion, very well. And I realize that that is not a possibility in these particular structures because of the lattice work. But in cases with the lattice work, we've used, if I recall correctly, it was a product called Natina, and that made it appear to be core 10 steel. And we're staff was wondering if there's a possibility for y'all to look into, if that's the correct word, using the Natina product to produce a patina finish.
Yes, there could be some, we'll use the terminology dulled from the factory. We could explore that if that's a concern. Several different components and thought processes. We're working closely with the Forest Service on the sectional line there. So we have some things we're doing there, but we could give consideration to that if need be. Yes, sir.
I think that would allay some folks' feeling. I know there was a lot of angst with some of the power lines north up towards in the Walker's Creek district. And we just don't want to get into that can of worms again. So anything you all can do proactively on that would be, I think, would help move this project along more quickly.
Understood, Ben. We can take that as a takeaway and have some follow-up discussions. I hear your concerns, and I think I have some awareness of some of the other locations you may be referring to. And a little bit of my hesitance is we're working with several constituents, and particularly the Forest Service, and trying to be mindful and a lot of concerns with view shed, and we understand and appreciate those and are attempting to make good decisions. Thank you.
That's what we're asking you to do. So we appreciate that. I'd
like them to come back with a plan.
come back with
I'd like
a
to see
plan.
what
I think we
14-foot wall
definitely,
looks like.
I think we definitely need a new substation down there. So.
Yes, sir. It's aged infrastructure for sure, and it's part of our end of life program with those type assets.
All right. So I think we'll continue this, and we'll look forward to seeing the plan. That is it.
Do we need a motion to
Do
postpone?
we need to have a motion to postpone? That is a question.
We've opened and closed the public hearing. That's clear. But as far as a motion to postpone until the next,
Set it over.
to set it over.
Whatever next
Okay.
meeting.
Yes.
Okay. Off of the.
I'll make a motion that we set over the decision until next meeting, which is May
12th.
May 12th.
A second.
All right. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Motion carries. So thank you, Mr. Jackson and Ocean Dominion. And we look forward to hearing from you next meeting.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks, sir.
Okay, we'll now move on to the Dynamic Energy Solutions LLC, North Lee Highway, continued public hearing. And the application for special exception permit for a 5 megawatt AC solar project public utility in the Ag and General Use A2 zoning district. So, Chris, to you, and turn it over to the.
Yes, and we have, I know we have Mr. Pat Hastings in attendance this evening, and I will let him introduce his team. But I would like to do a very brief PowerPoint presentation. All right. This is a special exception application for Dynamic Energy LLC, application for a special exception permit for a 5-megawatt AC solar project as a public utility in the agricultural and general use district, the A2 zoning district. Briefly to review the area zoning map, the white, which is the property is outlined in magenta. The Alexander property, excuse me, is outlined in magenta. The white on the map is agricultural general use, A2. The yellow on the map is R1 residential. The gray is in general industrial. The dark red is general business, B1. The green is, in this case, it's the Fairfield Elementary School and surrounding property is in the conservation zone, C1. And the pink is the agricultural transitional zone. Again, the Alexander tract is outlined as orange and identified as tax map 38-10-A and is approximately 49 acres per GIS. Pat Hastings, with Mr. Pat Hastings with Dynamic Energy Solutions LLC has made an application for a 5-megawatt AC solar project along North Lee Highway near the village of Fairfield. The property is owned by James G. Alexander Jr. and is located in the A2 zone. Per section 603.09, excuse me, 603.03-9 of the County Rockbridge Land Development Regulations, public utilities are a use by special exception. The proposed 5-megawatt solar site is approximately 40 acres of the Alexander farm. There is existing dairy operation on the farm. The portion that's proposed for the solar project has been utilized in the past for crop field. The Alexander family owns the property to the south and directly across Interstate 8164 of the proposed solar project. At the March 10th, 2021 Planning Commission, the Planning Commission held its public hearing. The public hearing was continued until tonight's meeting and advertised as such. At the meeting, the Planning Commission requested landscaping along Interstate 81 and photo simulations to better understand how the site would be viewed from Interstate 81 and Route 11. The TCO is currently reviewing this project at the April 7th, 2017 TCO meeting. Due to topography of the site, there was discussion on possibility of relocating the plantings from the proposed fence in the middle of the farm field closer to Route 11. Mr. Pat Hastings has discussed the possibility with the landowner and will update the commission accordingly. With that, I'd like to turn this portion over of the meeting to Mr. Pat Hastings with Dynamic Energy Solutions LLC to review the details of the project and how they have been modified since the last Planning Commission meeting. With that, bear with me, Mr. Hastings, and I'll promote you to a panelist so we can see and hear you. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen before I do that.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Great. I appreciate that. And it's a pleasure. Chris, can I ask you to promote Derek Sheehan to a panelist as well, Derek?
Yes, there's some feedback, but I have promoted Derek as well. Yes, sir.
Okay, great. All right. And let me share my screen here and we can get going. Okay. can you confirm you can see the layout that I have up?
Yes, sir, we can.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so yeah, again, Pat Hastings from Dynamic Energy. Appreciate the time to speak again and your consideration. Derek Sheehan with Dynamic Energy is also on the call here. Derek's the director of community development with Dynamic. Has a lot of experience with developing solar projects like this. So yeah, like Chris said, basically our takeaways from the last meeting were helping address the visual concerns from both Highway 81 and the TCO's, I guess, opinions and observations of the screening along Route 11. So the changes that we've made in the meantime, since the last meeting were to add a significant amount of landscaping along the property line along 81. So basically you can see in this block is all the landscaping and trees that we've added here. The kind of hatched gray area is existing vegetation. Some of it is very thick. This is actually, a big berm, and down towards, or I should say up towards the northeast is more. So trying to add trees and plants to help screen a bit better from that view shed from 81. In addition to that, increasing the number of plantings along Route 11, as well as the northeast property line, bordering the residential, properties. So with the idea, basically, and I'll move the screen down a little bit, but just to call, lack of a better term, beefing up the landscaping and, help screen it a bit more. Along with those changes, we've submitted at the request, visualizations from those perspectives. And let me see down here. And I guess I'll start from, this is from Route 11, basically right in front of the elementary school, if anybody's familiar with that, basically the high point, on Route 11, along the frontage there. So just was to give you a good idea of what the plantings would look like. You can see, close to the array or the composite, or, I should say, plantings and along the residential parcel there. Moving on, another request was to have a different perspective. So this next perspective is further down on Route 11. Traveling, southwest and looking back northeast to kind of give a visualization or an idea of the plantings themselves and the spacing in between the modules a little bit better. I think as you travel a little further down Route 11, there's another berm of trees, and you lose perspective. So this is really, I think, stopping at the bottom of the hill and kind of looking back, back up at the project. So I think this is a good, good perspective there. And the other one, I guess the last perspective here we showed is the plantings along Route 81. So you can see them back here added along the fence line, all the way down where there is not existing vegetation to buffer, to shield the project itself. And as Chris mentioned, during the TCO meeting, a part of, one of the things that were brought up is the landscaping where we have it now. Get all the way back up to the main drawing here. Along Route 11, if the perspective or what the possibility of actually moving that landscaping up closer to Route 11 along the road. So kind of where we're at with that is obviously are in talks with the owner as far as, is that possibility and what are the options and what are the pros and cons from his perspective in doing that. So I think, our initial feedback that we've gotten from him was, he's kind of open to he obviously wants the project to happen. He's open to a lot, but we still need to kind of walk him through, give him visualizations and give him a good idea of what that is going to entail. Part of, I guess, and I'll bring the pictures up, part of that area there is There's power lines. So this is looking down Route 11. So in order to move that landscaping line up closer to the road, we essentially would have to offset those plantings and those trees a decent amount off of the utility lines. Typically, there's a 25 to 30 foot right of way or easement that Dominion would have for these lines. So the plantings really would have to be out in this field. So if you do the math, given the frontage and the width of the plantings, it's probably going to take up another acre and a half to 2 acres all the way across the front of the property. Having said that, another option that we're presenting to the owner and like to present to the TCO and everybody is, in lieu of actually moving those plantings to the close to the street, if we replaced the existing cattle fence that, and you can't see it in this picture very well, but I have another one that I think we can. Yeah, this is a little bit better. So you can see the growth. This is actual fence going up. This is looking towards the north. This is the elementary school back here. But replacing this, chain link or cattle fence, whatever you want to call it, with an opaque, wooden privacy fence, I think I think that kind of solves, maybe the concern of the view shed from the street a little bit better, and it kind of takes away from giving up a bit more land and having these plantings and trees along the road. So, I guess I said to start with, those are the options we're exploring with the owner and like to explore with everybody here. So I guess probably now is a good time to pause and see if there's any questions or feedback on those comments.
How tall would that privacy fence?
Typically 6 feet, typical wooden fence. I can give ourselves a better view here. So this is kind of the same perspective. Looking down on it, and I would call, these, you can see the cattle fence here, and I think these road signs, I'm not exactly sure how tall they are, but I would call them, close to 5 feet tall. So I think a 6 foot, privacy fence would definitely, as you're driving, in my opinion, block the view. And I think when you get further down the hill, you'll still have fencing here, and then our access road is going to be here. So really, if you put a fence here, the only time you would really get a good look at it is if you're down further traveling traveling the other way, looking towards the northwest.
And just to add here, can everybody hear me okay? Pat?
Yeah,
Pat, yeah, okay.
You're good.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that. Sorry, I'm not on video, but I did speak with the landowner, and he is aware and did speak to a neighbor who had talked about, or kind of brought up the idea of with the TCO about making or moving the buffer closer to Route 11. He said that the easement that the utility that Dominion has there along the property line, they are pretty firm about keeping that area clean. That's just feedback that I got from the landowner about it. For some reason, he seems to say that those power lines are pretty, stringently, or that easement is pretty stringently enforced, if you will, and he does have the utility come out and clean it up pretty often. So I think, just the thought of moving plantings like up under the power lines was, I think pretty out of the question, at least from his experience with Dominion and that easement there. So yeah, we're still discussing with him about, fencing or potentially moving the buffer closer to the road. it would again eliminate an additional probably acre and a half of active farmland if that was what we had to do. I think generally the landowner wants to see the project done or completed. So, I think we can accommodate as needed, but just some additional notes there about kind of the sentiment from the landowner's perspective about dominion and that easement for those power lines there along his property line.
Yeah, great, Derek. I appreciate that. So, and I think, I guess kind of, what we said in the TCO meeting, and I guess we'll say again here is, obviously we're open, want to make everybody as happy as can be and explore these options, with the landowner, TCO commission board as well, and, get to a conclusion that everybody's happy with. I think one thing that I'll ask, at this meeting, if we can get some sort of, I guess, feedback or definitive or not on, the plantings along, Route 81 and what we proposed there, and kind of, maybe at least just get an idea of the thoughts, what we've proposed and how they fit into what everybody's looking for.
All right. I think what we'll need to do, Mr. Hastings, is probably reopen the public hearing, and then we'll come back and visit some of our feedback from the commission. But let's see if there are any public opinions out there that may be able to help shed us some light on some of the things. So with your permission and Mr. Sladen, we'll go ahead and continue with the public hearing that we opened last meeting and see if there's any other comments from the public. There's no one personally present here. Is there anybody in Zoom? Well, except when nobody, sorry, Russ. You're somebody, just go away.
You're just like one of us.
You are one of them, yeah.
I will, if I can briefly mention too, I will say, I'm not sure if anybody here on this call tonight was at the TCO board meeting, but I guess also too, just to provide a little context, I don't think that the general sentiment of the TCO was that the current proposed buffering was a kind of a deal breaker, if you will, or a serious issue. I think it was more just kind of general thought about, potentially obscuring the view from the eastern side of the parcel on 11. I don't think it was per se, at least my takeaway on it, didn't seem to be that the current proposed buffer was going to receive like a negative recommendation or feedback from the TCO. I think it was just more so thought about, are there other ways to tuck it away a little bit more? So for what that's worth to everybody on the call.
Thank you, Mr. Sheehan. Mr. Sladen, are there any comments out there?
We do not have, excuse me, we do not have any hands raised. And we do not have any, bear with me here. And we do not have any, where my mouse is at. We do not have any questions and answers.
Okay, so at this time, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to the Planning Commission. Mr. Hastings and your team, I really appreciate your willingness to look at other options. And I know that, speaking from the TCO as well, that we're pretty much in favor of this project. I think we're just looking at the options of the screening. If we can get some screening, I had not even considered the wooden privacy fence, so I want to go back out there and look at it. Are we okay as far as you're concerned, as far as extending this to the next meeting? Is that was kind of my understanding, Chris? We're not going to take an action
That's certainly what Mr. Hastings and I had chatted about prior to this meeting. And I will echo that we're very appreciative of the willingness to work with all parties to find the best plan moving forward. With that being said, just like I believe the TCO, if I recall correctly, the TCO has 45 days per ordinance to act on the application. I believe that's increased to 60 days with the Planning Commission. So this will be the second month that we're working on it. So we will have to work with Mr. Hastings and get a written extension by agreement that would supersede the ordinance requirements. Is that a fair summary of our conversation, Mr. Hastings?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I guess the one thing I'll reiterate and ask for feedback is on the other side of Route 81. Today, just so whether we cross it off the list or not, but just so as we move forward and take the next steps with the other options, just to
Speaking from
be clear on exactly what the next steps are. But yes, Chris, yeah, we're absolutely open to doing that.
my personal feeling on the 81 is that looks really good. I'm happy with that. I think the Route 11 side, I think is the one that has more considerations to look at the best solution. But
My
81, I don't think there's a whole lot more you could do. I think you've done a really nice job with that. And quite honestly, people driving along at 70 miles an hour, it's about a 15 to 20 second look, and I think some kids will look out there and say, "Gosh, there's another solar array." So,
Right.
but I don't know. I can't speak for everyone else. I'm just giving my.
I think
personal
I'm just looking at the pictures and my personal opinion. I'll probably do like Mr. McLaughlin, go back out there. The interstate view of it, I think you've done a well job, and then the others, the Route 11. Personally, I don't see what a 6-foot fence is going to make or break the deal, just for the fact that if you're riding along Route 11, and what I do know about it is it's all downhill, you're going to be still looking over top of a 6-foot fence. But I'll go back out there and probably take a 6-foot pole with me and kind of put where, because like you said, the 3-phase line is going to restrict you from putting anything within a 30-foot corridor either side of the pole. So that's going to hinder you there. So you're going to be right back 30 feet over in that field. And again, it's downhill. So you're going to be looking over a 6-foot fence. So that's my perspective.
Yeah, they're up at about 600 feet that you'd be looking down.
Yeah. So the fence, you're still going to be.
But on the upper end towards the school, towards Fairfield Elementary, that fence would be more than enough. And then as you get closer to Alexander, there's a hill, there's an embankment there, pretty high. But between about where the current entrance road is down to where that little hill close to the Alexanders, that's the only place that it's really visible.
It's going to be effective.
Can you remind me how many acres we're talking about?
49.
The entire site on this side is approximately 49 acres, and the lease site is approximately 40 acres.
Okay. So still, regardless, it'll be a 40-acre solar array.
Yeah, it will be approximately a 40-acre solar array.
And my question is, because I'll get this, I know from our constituents, is in 30 seconds, how does this solar array benefit Rockbridge County residents? Why are we going to give up 40 acres of beautiful farmland that we get to look at every day going down 11? How does that directly benefit Rockbridge County?
I think they said before that it would, how many homes will that supply? Because it's going to feed right into Dominion. And they said it in the last meeting how many homes that would supply energy to, but I forget the number.
Yeah, so the program this solar project is kind of aiming at is there's a community solar program in Virginia that's opening up. So basically the way it works is that and I'll tell you what, I'll let Derek speak to that. He's more involved with the community solar program, so he can speak more clearly about the program itself. So Derek, you go ahead and do that.
Yeah, thanks, Pat. So yeah, there are a couple benefits. I mean, one, we're working with a local attorney regarding the taxes and what we can provide to the county in terms of tax for citing the project there. I know that typically what we do for these projects is a pilot, but I know, our understanding is that pilots between municipalities and private entities or for-profit entities are not permitted in Virginia from our understanding, which, you know, we're still kind of getting a handle on that. But, and also too, I think 5 megawatts or less solar projects are tax exempt under Virginia statutes, but there is another mechanism that we can use to provide compensation to the county. So we're just doing a little bit of digging on that right now with a Virginia-based law firm that they're pretty large. It's Williams and I'm blanking on the second part of the name, but they have 240 attorneys on staff and 30 of them are dedicated to solar specifically. So we feel like we're in pretty good hands there. So that's kind of like the direct, at least on the tax side, which, you know, we'll have more information on as we engage with this law firm. But additionally, so the community solar program, these are programs that have started to pop up around the country. I think there are about, you know, probably 20 or 25 states now that have adopted some sort of community solar or shared solar program, as the Virginia statute calls it out. The way that the community solar program works is that, and the reason why that they exist is typically only 1 in 5 homes meet the requirements to install rooftop solar. And even if you are able to install solar on your roof, you know, there's upfront costs, which can be a barrier. You know, you may have to cut down trees to you know, open up solar access to your roof. And so there are just a lot of hurdles for the average homeowner to go solar if they want to. So what community solar does is it really allows anybody who has an electric account with the utility in that territory to go solar without having to install anything on your roof or property. And so what happens is, you know, instead of installing 20 panels or 30 panels or 100, you know, whatever you may need on your property or on your roof, we build one large solar project at, you know, hopefully an ideal site location that works for the county and the landowner and, you know, everybody involved. And what happens is everybody's panels are out in the field instead of on their property generating energy every month. And what happens is the utility tracks that production and they apply the every subscriber's proportional share of that production to their electric bills as a credit. And it just shows up as a new line item on the bill. And the way that these programs are incentivized is they actually provide a savings on the cost of the subscriber's electricity. So for example, if any one of you or anybody in Rockbridge County who's a Dominion Energy customer can subscribe to this project, and you know, typically the savings are about 10%. It's no out-of-pocket cost to join, and what happens is, you know, if your bill on average is about $100 a month, let's say, then we will size out a share of the production of the solar garden to deliver on average $100 worth of energy credit to your electric bill, and then in turn you would pay to the solar garden $90 for that $100 worth of energy. So the residents of Rockbridge County, or you know, any residents of the county can participate as long as they have an electric bill. So I think, and also too, you know, there are definitely unique ways to kind of partition part of these projects out specifically for residents. So you know, I think that's really what the benefit of the program brings, and it's part of Virginia's, you know, 2050 carbon neutral, pretty aggressive bill that was passed. There are a number of different programs under that bill to get to that target goal, to be carbon neutral by 2050. But you know, this is one of the programs, and this is one of the ways that we're you know, trying to get Virginia and a number of other states and commonwealths across that finish line to that goal, if that answers your question.
Yeah. So basically, we're talking about a savings of about 10% if they subscribe to the solar program. So that's, I mean, if somebody asks me in 30 seconds or less, you're going to save some money on your electric bill. And there's a possibility that it's going to benefit Rockbridge County with taxes, I guess, from you guys, suppose. Okay.
With the landowner lose land use taxation, what's this is put in, Chris? You know?
I believe so. So a lot of those taxation questions, and we'll get to a letter that I provided from the Farm Bureau with some of those questions. The Planning Commission's role is really to look at it as a land use decision, and it's more the supervisor's role to talk about the economics of it and that type of thing. With that being said, I'm uncertain. I believe they will, but I'm uncertain on that.
All right, anybody have any other, since do we need to make a motion to move this on to next month pending feedback from?
Yes, that it would be a
Mr.
motion
Hastings.
to
All right, so let's
carry over.
call for a motion. Carry over.
Okay, so I make a motion that we carry over the discussion about the solar, what is it?
Dynamic Energy Solutions
Dynamic
LLC.
Energy Solutions project to next month, May 12th.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Hastings and Derek, thank you. Mr. Sheehan, thank you all very much for your participation tonight, and we look forward to seeing you again on May 12th. So thanks for everything that you all are doing to make
Pictures
this
were
work.
super helpful.
Yeah,
Yes,
pictures
they
are
were
very
great.
helpful.
Sure. Absolutely. Thank you. Appreciate the time.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, that brings us now to number 10. We need to do a commercial site plan of Seventh-day Adventist Church on Bearswood Lane. So, Chris, do you want to go over that and then?
Yes.
turn it over
So
to the patient?
Mr. Russ Orison is in attendance tonight. to review
Mr.
the-
Patient.
To review the project. Bear with me here. Definitely find the property is in the business zone. So I did not have a PowerPoint presentation for this one, but let me share my screen, get you oriented with sort of the same thing as far as
You're going to get good internet.
Yeah. Yeah. Can we just put on this? And then
Yeah.
I'll send- yeah. That little square right beside it.
Yeah, no, it's sort of somewhat ironic because not much happened on Bearswood Lane in the last, since I've been here with the county.
But in the last year,
And in
it's
the
been
last year, 2 years, we've had, this is our
Third application?
one commercial site plan review and many special exceptions, of course, three special exceptions. So to get everyone oriented with the location, this is East Midland Trail, right after the Interstate 81 ramp. Going to the east, of course, is Buena Vista, and going to the east is Buena Vista, and heading back to the west is going to be the city of Lexington, more or less right in between the two. Bearswood Lanes is a dead-end road, public road, dead-end road. And this property was acquired some time ago by the Seventh-day Adventist Church, and it's located in a business zone and surrounded by a business zone. So on your screen, you can see anything you can see that is clear. Like, let me actually do this. The white portion is the agricultural general use, A2. The dark red is the business zone, general business. Churches and cemeteries, as reported in the agenda package, they are permitted use in the agricultural zone, in the business zone. And so therefore, this is just a commercial site. This is a commercial site plan review for the permitted use. In this particular case, it's outside of the corridor. And so the site plan approval comes directly to the Planning Commission. This is unlike the other applications we've had before us tonight. This is not a public hearing, and this is not a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors. Y'all have the full-blown site plan authority. And so per the ordinance, y'all have the full-blown site plan authority. So I'm going to continue to share my screen and pull up the plans themselves. And I will just turn the floor over to Russ Orison, and I can start with this one here, and this sort of the existing, and go on Let me zoom out a little bit more. Go to the existing site conditions, and then we can go down and scroll down if you like.
So if you're familiar with the site, this is showing the existing conditions of the brick house. Currently up there in the driveway, right there in the curb, there's the lane. They're kind of at the high point here. There's an existing well up here. This is where the drain field will be going. Let's go down. So as usual, I'm fitting about as much as I can to meet what the client needs. So this is the building that we're currently proposing here. This is a future addition that they hope to do sooner than later. This is an entrance that we met with VDOT and they're okay with the entrance. We don't have to approve it yet. So they're fine. You're gonna come in, come around. There's quite a bit of drop off space here for people that don't want to walk up the hill from the parking lot, handicap parking, whatnot. This was the drain field, stormwater management facility. And I guess that's about it. VDOT's good with the entrance. We made this little E&S and stormwater. We don't see any problems with that. We think it's pretty straightforward. We've met with Bark out there for the electric provision of electric. And I don't think that you have any comments that I've heard.
I did not.
That I think we're pretty flowing along with the site.
Lighting and all, I mean, you know the regulations as
So
well.
we are
as
not going to do
anybody.
any lighting of the parking lot. There might be some building lighting, so that'll be picked up with the building plans. And of course, it will have to be meet your ordinance directed downward, glare shielded, dark sky compliant.
I was curious about the parking lot. You answered that.
What's that?
I was curious about the parking lot.
Yeah, they decided they did not need any lighting.
And we'll have to review that because that's one thing we did not have an opportunity to discuss is lighting. There, I believe it's a correct statement to say there's some minimum parking lot requirements for the lighting, but we can chat about those. There's obviously maximums, but I also believe there's some minimums as well. But we can see if that can be achieved with alternative designs.
They'll get the internet from that site right next door, I'm assuming.
Yes, that you're exactly correct. The Viasat project that we reviewed last month was directly next door, and it's sort of ironic because with the Viasat project we had concerns on buffering. If you remember correctly, they were opposed to landscaping because of operational issues, but they did proceed with a wooden fence, and that was primarily to shield it from this particular project. Unknowing that this project was going, I knew the church had owned it, and they've owned it for quite some time. But I had no idea that the site plan was coming the very next month. So I have talked to church representative, of course, and I shared the Viasat project with them last month prior to the Board of Supervisors, and they were very appreciative of y'all, suggesting or requiring, if you will, the wooden fence. So I think that worked out well.
Mr. Carson, you do good work.
Thank you.
Parking definitely exceeds the requirements. I can't remember the exact numbers, but you far exceed
Right.
what is required per ordinance.
Far, but we do
22,
exceed that.
15, and 14.
And then there's parking out back too, which I missed on I first looked at that. All right,
You are definitely squeezing a lot in a little space.
Thank you.
Do we need to?
there's no motion, or do we make a motion to
make a
approve?
So I'll make a motion that we approve the commercial site plan as submitted for the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
We have a motion?
If you want to get the language in there about contingent on VDOT, ENS and stuff, you can. I don't think it would change anything, but if you want to.
Right.
It'd be beneficial.
Yeah, sure. So we're contingent upon VDOT approval and what was the other?
Lighting.
And the lighting.
And ENS, stormwater management. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
There you go.
So we have a motion?
Second.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Arson. Thank you for your patience tonight.
Well,
Great. So we've got one last little bit of information stuff to do. So,
You?
and,
Well, this is something that I emailed
Yeah.
this afternoon. But I did want to pass it out to have a very brief discussion on it. This is a letter that we received from the Rockbridge County Farm Bureau. And it is signed by the president and others of the Farm Bureau Board. And it pertains to solar projects, well, utility scale solar projects in Rockbridge County. And, you know, while I feel the Alexander application definitely propelled this forward, you know, there are also a lot of farmers in Rockbridge County that have received some sort of solicitation from solar projects or solar companies, obviously. And so there's a lot of information in this to digest, but what I'd like to do is to obviously to pass this out as requested from the Farm Bureau, get it in front of y'all, but then also put it on as an agenda item next month. You know, obviously we use the special exception process in Rockbridge County as a public utility. We know that we've gone through a couple of them now. I firmly believe at staff, I believe that we will continue to utilize the special exception process in the agricultural zones. But I'm not opposed to looking at what other localities are doing, and then also, you know, starting to develop some criteria for the special exception. One thing that comes to my mind is the telecommunication ordinance and what's that required, and what we are consistently seeing and what we would like to see with the solar project. One thing is photo simulations. Of course, in a telecommunications ordinance for new towers, there is a requirement by ordinance that we pick 5 vantage points and have photo simulations for those from those vantage points. So like every ordinance, it certainly can be improved upon. The timing could be a little bit tricky, as you know, just as far as the staff time to do the research, that type of thing. But there's a lot of good points on it. There's some points that are planning points. There's some points that are taxation points, and there's some points that I think are a general assembly. You know, as far as the Code of Virginia, some of the comments in here as far as who can address them and the appropriate next steps. But with that, I did email this to you earlier to sort of get the conversation going as requested. I'm passing out a hard copy of it, and didn't know if y'all want to have any additional discussion or put it on. You know, I'm happy to put it on the agenda item next time, as far as, you know, to continue the discussion of you know, exploring solar ordinances or you know, piggybacking of what we already have in place.
I think it needs, as these are becoming more and more prevalent, seeing so much land in other counties that have just been taken up by these massive fields. I think
the point too, where it talks about, you know, taking it out of farming for 30 years. I mean, that's a generation of people, you know, and I do have a lot of concerns about that.
I'd just like for a little bit more explanation about the loss of machine and tool tax revenue. Like, you know, that be explained to us a little bit more about the legislation is granted 80% tax and then goes into, you know, what the utility scale installation through 2030. Just, I'd like to understand that a little bit more personally.
Sure, and I can get with y'all as far as and it's definitely in the forefront of our mind, you know, as planning commission. You know, again, our main focus is on the land use decision of it, but it's certainly beneficial to know that other aspects of the project as well. And so that could be something that I could piggyback on as well. And I know Mr. David Weitzel, the commissioner of the revenue for Rockbridge County, has also done a considerable amount of work on the taxation of it and exploring the Code of Virginia and how these are being taxed and versus the megawatts versus 25 or greater or less than 25, that type of thing.
That was I was a little confused when they talked about that. You know, they were saying we may be taxed, we may not be taxed because we're less than 5 megawatts. Like, it was just too ambiguous to me to really understand.
Like the question about if it's going to go out of land use. That was, that's another tax revenue for the county. Would that not be?
It's a taxation program for the
Program
county,
for the
yes.
county, right.
Yes.
Should be an increase.
At a
in
lower rate,
revenue.
should be an increase in
Increase
taxes
taxes.
toward the county.
If it's not in land use, then it would
Right,
be
they pay
increased
more,
tax.
But I also think there's this dollar thing, I know we're worried about the dollars and we want to have more tax revenue and stuff, but if we change the character of our county and you're driving down the road and all you see,
Oh, no, I agree, yeah.
I'm very
This
concerned.
particular project is, maybe a 15-second. There are very few people. One of them is Mr. Lucas, has a visualization from his property, but there are very few places that actually will view this as a permanent view shed. And so we see it as we drive by, but we're not looking at it for a long time. I worry about a group coming in wanting to build one of these mega sites. We've got to keep consistent with our plan of protecting the view shed, the general public too. So that's a consideration. I think it bears looking at to see if we need to.
One thing is that I also was thinking about, and you brought this up, was that we've seen a couple of plans for putting in Leland cypress versus kind of mixing it up with some beautification sort of like. I like that a lot better, and you're right about that. It looks like it fits in a lot better than putting in a bunch of Leland cypress, to mix it up and make it look beautiful.
The diversity in the plantings.
That's a good way to put it. It's just the diversity, because I leaned over and I said, see the different colors, and it was kind of like you could almost
focus on that.
Plus also, you've got some that's going to be pretty in the spring if we get, and I know there's certain things that can and cannot plant, but there are also dwarf versions of trees that can be beautiful in the fall versus the spring, and just work it that way where if we do have to put something in, then it can be.
I think it's too easy to go to we're going to do Leland cypress.
And they
it
never
grows
grow.
fast.
Yeah, and they're
They
still
don't.
sitting there at 6 foot tall, 6 foot years later.
All right.
I haven't had a chance to, there's a video, I think, that BMI professor sent us all.
Yes.
You all, I have not had a chance to look
We
at
got that a latter part of. I've looked at it. She was professor at WNL, but at Washington. Shoot, VMI.
Yeah.
She also spoke of it. Let's see.
26th
Kim
of
Connolly sent it on.
March 26th.
I did see that. I did see that.
You spell that last name for me?
March, CONNOLLY. And she,
That came to the
she's a resident of Rockbridge County, but she's a lieutenant colonel at VMI, assistant director of program and conferences. So what she must have been involved with it. It was a presentation that was given talking about the environmental endowment of Virginia and the governor at North.
I don't think I was copied on that.
Yeah.
We'll get it to you.
Yeah, it would be good to share that.
Plus 10. So no, it does look like she sent it to everyone on the planning commission and the board of supervisors.
Okay, if you could share that with
I
me.
will
it
send
sounds
that
like
to
it'd be
you now.
beneficial for
Chris,
the
I have
discussion.
a question too about the project that's going on at exit 175, the tow yard there.
Yes,
Can you see that? So it looks like they keep bringing dirt and just dumping it over the backside of that other, which is not open, or I guess it's going to be open at
The
some
old Shell
point.
station.
The one that faces 81. So I get off at that exit all the
Me
time.
too.
And I'm like, what is going on? It looks terrible.
The
I mean,
one
it's just
that is-
red clay,
Yeah,
dirt.
that is not under construction yet.
Correct.
The one that's still vacant.
Yes.
I have no idea, but I can
They're
certainly
just
check in
dumping
that.
dirt. Yeah, I mean, tons
Yeah.
and tons of dirt over the side
They
of
dug
that.
out for their fuel tanks for the across the road. I'm fairly certain.
It
Ah.
just looks terrible, when I'm getting off the interstate. I keep
Okay.
noticing
Yeah.
it.
I can share
I
that.
just
I can share that comment with the erosion and sediment control to make sure it was
Yes,
done properly or at least seed installed.
Yeah, that'd be
There's
great.
no-
Yeah, because it's definitely not seated and straw.
No, there's no silt fence, but of course it's not
That's-
going anywhere.
Which exit?
Is it
180?
180? 180.
That's Bridge.
That's good.
Yeah, I live by exit 3.
All right.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Motion's made.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are done. All right. Thank you all very much.
Thank you all.
And I didn't realize I had my hat on for most of that meeting. So forgive me for having my hat on in the building.
So I've gotten dependent on your little motion thing. So
Yeah, we were like,
I'm like, where is
uh,
that? What am I doing?
I just remember we couldn't.
Chris, you're still live.
Chris had
Because I
to
was
walk us
always-
through 'em.
I can never
Thank you. String sentences together.
No, it's so nice to have that. We found
Yeah.
Chris, you're still live on YouTube.
Okay, thank you. How about now, Brandy?
It's still live.
All right, let me just close.
You can just end the meeting altogether and that'll take care of it.
Yeah, no, I have ended the meeting.
Hmm.
Let me just keep on closing stuff and you tell me if I'm done or not. Is it still on?
No, you've got to end it on the other computer.
I'm with you. Thank you.